Good morning. It is Friday, September 1st at 5:30 a.m. and I'm back with you for another session on expansion, the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. So we're going to begin because words are a contraction and we're trying to move in the opposite direction, expansion. We're going to speak as little as possible today and just practice the technique, beginning with the preliminary phase, which is deep breaths followed by stillness and silence. Deep breaths, stillness, silence, all expansive acts. Here we go. 3 deep breaths, 15 seconds of stillness and silence. 15 seconds, absolute stillness, silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. So that's it. You've begun to expand. If everything in the universe is in either one of two states, contracted or expanded, then you just move the dial towards a more expanded state. What you want is to move away from overcontraction, which makes you feel bad, to more expanded state until you become centered or balanced. Now we're going to expand further. 5 deep breaths, followed by 30 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle. Here we go. 5 deep breaths. 30 seconds, absolute stillness and silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breath. And just take a moment to register what, if any, changes you feel as a result of those simple, expansive steps. All we're doing when we expand, according to this technique, are deep breaths, stillness, silence, and what will be what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique, the incremental release of muscular tension, which is what we'll do in a moment. We're going to expand even further. We're going to now do 7 deep breaths, followed by a full minute, 60 seconds of absolute stillness and silence. Here we go. 7 deep breaths. 60 seconds, absolute stillness, silence. Don't move a muscle, but continue to breathe. Deep breaths. So as you begin to expand, you may find that you feel more still, more quiet, more empty. Whatever obsessive thoughts or worries your mind, your brain was holding onto like a muscle, will, like the rest of your muscles in your body, have begun relaxing, releasing, and those thoughts will have drifted away. So take note of even the smallest changes, because as you begin to expand, you move away from contraction. You can't do both at the same time. So any movement towards expansion is progress. So acknowledge that. This technique works incrementally, small changes, small expansive steps. So now we move into what I call the nuts and bolts of the technique, which is the actual incremental release of tension. The thing I discovered when I first began practicing this technique is that you can't relax or expand at the same time as you contract. So a muscle can only contract or expand, can't make a fist and release a fist at the same time. So as you begin to release muscular tension, it makes it all the more challenging to hold on to anything. And that includes thoughts. So when I found myself distressed, if I concentrated simply on releasing muscular tension in any area of the body I found accessible to that process, I moved away from thought. And while frustrating initially, because what is holding on wants to continue to hold on, as you chip away at that contractive state and begin to expand, eventually your whole being begins to transform into a more expanded state. And you'll feel it, you'll notice it. That's why it's important to pay attention to the changes, because it's going to feel different for each of us. So note how you feel, what differences you experience as you begin to expand. So now we begin the incremental release of muscular tension. So squeeze your hands together, and on my count, release. 3, 2, 1, and release. That's contraction and expansion. Make a fist. 3, 2, 1, and release. So that dichotomy, contraction, expansion, is, as the writer Thaddeus Goulis stated in his book, The Lazy Man's Guide to Enlightenment, the fundamental processes of the universe. Everything in the universe is either contracting or expanding or vacillating between the two. So we tend to move in a contracted state as human beings. We put things together, we build, we speak, we think, we write, we maintain relationships. These all require effort and the bringing together of forces, entities to achieve a goal. So we do that a lot, and it becomes a habit to the point where we can become overly contracted, constricted, restrained, tied up in knots, as they say, in an effort to keep it together. So as you expand, you let go of everything. You let go of ideas, thoughts, words, intent. You go to a place of nothingness. Muscular release is the tool, the vehicle by which you can move into an expanded state. So we move through our body. I used to call this technique scanning, because you move through the body, you scan it looking for pockets of muscular tension that you can release. So we start with the face, what I call zone 1. On my count, release whatever muscular tension you can in your face. 3, 2, 1, and release. It's like you've turned off the power to those muscles and they are drooping, sagging, letting go. It takes energy. It's a contraction to keep muscles together. As you let them go, whatever function they had disperses. And you're left with muscles that are just at a place of ease. So let's do it again. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. If it helps, look in the mirror. You can actually see the change. 3, 2, 1, and release. That is the heart of this technique, which I call expansion. It's not even really a technique. It's the act of expansion. Releasing muscular tension. We began with the breath, stillness, and silence as a preliminary way to put your body into a slightly more expanded state. And then we go into greater detail, more focused expansion with the muscles. The face, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. Zone 2 is the top of the head. 3, 2, 1, and release. If this is an unfamiliar process, if you're thinking, I don't know how to do that, what does that mean? Patience. The analytical mind is a contracted mind. It's trying to figure out, to describe, to evaluate, to give a score to say whether you're doing it good or bad. Those thoughts will dissipate as you become more expanded. So when you find yourself thinking, I can't do this, this doesn't work, the contracted mind say, maybe it will. I don't know. Let's see. The expanded mind. So just keep thinking about the muscle in that area. Focus on it. And on my count, let it go. The top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. The face again, 3, 2, 1, and top of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Followed by the back of the head, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. Another. And just take note of what changes you may feel as you move into a more expanded state. And this is a physical process. We're just dealing with the musculature. So see how you feel. Not what you think, how you feel. Taking the time to feel is an expansive act. When we are trying to keep it together, we're trying to hold on to and control our feelings. Feelings are naturally free-flowing. So when you take a moment to sit in stillness and silence and experience how you feel, you have moved into a more expanded state. And you may find that as you move into a more expanded state, you do have feelings which emerge, which maybe you have been holding down as a result of being contracted. That's an excellent sign that you have begun to expand. Again, watch for signs. You're studying your own being. How does my body work? Where am I holding tension? How does it feel when I expand? You're becoming more and more familiar with, you're becoming a student of the contractive, expansive continuum. So that as you go through your day, you will build a heightened awareness of where you are on that continuum. Am I more contracted or more expanded? Sometimes when you're highly contracted, you're not even aware you're contracted until you begin to expand, and then you feel tremendous resistance. Resistance is a sign of contraction. Acceptance is a sign of, resistance is a form of contraction, yes. And letting go, acceptance, is a sign of expansion. Just note these changes. Zone 4 is the neck, 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the neck, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. I've been doing this for many years. I'm always resistant to starting. The only thing that truly motivates me to start is knowing how good it will feel once I do. But the contractive mind wants to contract. That's its job. So if you experience resistance, that's an excellent sign that it is time to expand. When you are completely expanded, you have no resistance to anything. Everything is fine and acceptable. You are at peace. Zone 5, the shoulders, let them drop, 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the shoulders, 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. And another. And one more. Stillness and silence. Deep breath. Moving into the next muscular zone, which I call zone 6, which is the chest, the stomach, and the front of the waist. And you will find as you practice this technique, you have particular areas where you hold your tension. And you can spend an entire session just focusing on that. I've spent as long as an hour, sometimes even an hour and a half, just moving through my body, releasing muscular tension. Depending on how contracted I am, it may take that much longer to expand. But be patient. The very act of saying, I'm going to take this time is an expansive act, because you're saying, I'm not wasting time. There's nothing I'm doing right now where I should be doing something else. I accept this process. That's expansive. So you'll begin to see these distinctions. Zone 6, the chest, stomach, front of the waist. Deep breath. 3, 2, 1. On my count, release tension in the chest, stomach, front of the waist, which I call the plate of armor. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, chest, stomach, front of the waist, 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. Zone 7 is down the back, past the back of the waist, and into the all-important pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. Now, if you've never taken the time to focus on certain areas of your body, this might feel strange or uncomfortable or weird, or all sorts of feelings, as I said. That's fine. That's to be expected. Strange new feelings, uncomfortable feelings come with expansion because you are opening the door and letting them come in. You're allowing for whatever your body is feeling or experiencing. We work very hard during the day, the course of our day, to control feelings, thoughts, because they could prove the source of embarrassment or chaos or failure. So when I do a show, and I'm an actor, when I step on stage, there's been 4 weeks of rehearsal to try to learn how to control my body, my voice, my words. And over the course of the hour, hour and a half, 2 hours of that show, I have to keep it together and execute those steps. These are contractions. This is excellent. This is the stuff of life. This is how you maintain a life, by doing. And so contraction is not a bad thing by definition. It's one of the two things we do. But you must also learn to value the importance of expansion, the opposite. Letting go, having no plan, having no thoughts, no words, no idea, no judgment, no evaluation, nothing but what is. And you want to ultimately become an expert at both. You want to have what I call a very wide dynamic range. You want to contract very well, which let's say a concert pianist does. They've learned where to put their hands to play the music with all their abilities, and repeat that several times. The ultimate contraction, execution of bringing together of thoughts, ideas, notes in that case. We want to have that ability, but you also want to have the ability to completely let go of everything, to forget everything, if only for a moment, to bring yourself to a place of just stillness and silence, a pure being. You may find when you're in expanded state that you've forgotten what time it is, what day it is. You may for a moment forget what you're doing or why you're there. I always joke, you may forget your name. These are all contractions. As you let go, you're just a being. That's a completely expanded state. It's a place of great peace and joy because you've accepted simply what you are. Now, you can't live there as a human being, but you can visit it at least a couple of times a day. Zone 7, again, down the back, past the waist and into the pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. And I think of the contraction in the pelvic area as a sort of clenching. So if you can imagine just letting go, trusting that you won't lose control, you're not going anywhere, and see where that takes you. See what feelings you experience as you expand these different areas of your body. The pelvis. 3, 2, 1, and release. Take a deep breath. And again, 30 seconds of stillness and silence. Deep breath. There's a line from the movie Fight Club. First rule of Fight Club, don't talk about Fight Club. I always like that line because with this technique, these descriptions of this technique, the technique itself are contractions. Talking about the technique is a contraction. Ultimately, when you're completely expanded, there will be no technique. You will just be. This is just a vehicle. So if you see me and you run into me, chances are I'm not going to want to talk about this technique because talking about it is trying to clamp it down, hold it, which is the opposite purpose of this technique, which is to have no technique, to have nothing but just what is. Zone 8, down the legs, past the knees, and into the feet. On my count, release all the tension you can in your feet. 3, 2, 1, and release. And again, 3, 2, 1, and release. The feet, 3, 2, 1, and release. Deep breath. So in an expanded state, and you judge for yourself where you are on that continuum, there's nothing you need to talk about. There's nothing you need to describe. There's nothing you need to lock down or examine or think about. You just exist. It's a place of absolute stillness and silence and emptiness. Quiet. A state where you just exist. And all you are aware of is the beating of your heart, the satisfaction of taking a breath of oxygen, which keeps you alive, the feel of the air on your skin, the sounds in the room. You've dropped all intention. You've dropped all judgment. You've dropped all thoughts of the past or the future. You've stopped thinking completely, because thought is a contraction. So look for these things. Look for, again, study yourself. See how your being works, what it feels like to you to contract versus how it feels to be expanded. Take a note of that. What you'll begin to realize is that you have the ability within you to move yourself on this continuum, so that when you find yourself in an overly contracted state, which is simply put feeling bad generally, you have the ability within yourself to expand and take yourself to a place of clarity and calm and peace and joy until you are balanced or centered. We all know these things instinctively. We're just building a consciousness, a more heightened consciousness of our ability to do this. We all have it within us. Excuse me. I'm not teaching anybody anything they don't already know. We all instinctively know we need to expand to achieve balance. But we forget, we lose touch with that ability. So we convince ourselves that we are dependent on external processes to achieve expansion. Alcohol, drugs, therapists, masseuse, chiropractor. These are all fine. These are all excellent. Until you get to the point where you feel dependent on them, or when you feel weakened because you need these external processes to achieve balance. You don't. You can do it. You have the tools. You just have to be willing to let go. Deep breath. The hardest thing about letting go is acceptance. Accepting what is. Acceptance is an expansive process. So explore it and see how it feels. And do it incrementally. You don't have to do it all at once. Any amount of expansion is a movement away from contraction. So that's it for today's session. Again, it's expansion, the incremental release of muscular tension to achieve a deep state of physical, emotional, and mental calm. And we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.